Hello everybody, my name is Andrew and welcome to a special Zero Camp video about the January 2025 rules update for War Machine. This is going to be part 8 where we talk about the Southern Creel's Brineblood Marauders. Alright, so let's take it away with the Brineblood Marauders. We're going to go ahead and start by talking about their spell rack. Powder Keg gets a change. Realistically, the change to Powder Keg is that the critical hit effect, where it takes away all initials, they can't make special attacks or power attacks for 1 rounds, only occurs to the model directly hit. It no longer impacts all the models on the AoE 3, which is fantastic for everyone else that's not Brineblood Marauders. That being said, the effect is still really good. You're still going to be fishing for crits, but now it's going to be much more targeted. You're not just going to try to lob it at, say, something next to a high def target that you want to remove all the initials from. You have to hit the thing you want to do that to. It's going to be a big quality life change for all the other players. It's still going to be good for Brineblood players. It's just not going to be as powerful. So the Abyssal King, we see some changes here. The Electro Lure head changes in cost from a 12 to a 10, but otherwise stays the same. It does make the most expensive Abyssal King now 31 points. The figurehead option, the Seahorse figurehead, changes the animus from Ornery, where it gains Retaliatory Strike, to Counterblast, where if an enemy in its movement is placed within 5 inches, it gets to make 1 basic melee or range attack targeting the model that was moved, which is really nice for the Abyssal King. Retaliatory Strike's good, but that also meant getting hit. It now also means that it gets the attack in before it takes the damage. Also super awesome. Then the Powder Cask Tentacle Weapon changes. It increases the POW from a 15-8, so 15/8, to a 15/10. It also gains the critical continuous fire effect. So just overall some nice changes there. Realistically, it gets a little bit cheaper since the most expensive one is now less. So awesome to see for the Abyssal King. Admiral Boomhowler, not to be confused with her lesser solo brother, who we'll talk about in the next video. Realistically, we should get one change to her, which is the Storm Rager spell. One of her signature spells goes from cost 3 to cost 2. So it's now just a little bit easier for her to get that out to either a solo or to herself when she just really needs someone to go ham. Booty Boss gets a fairly significant change. It's weird they grouped it this way. It's actually 3 different changes, but we see their costs go from a 3 to a 2. The solo goes from 8 damage boxes to 5, and its arm goes from 17 to 16. So its utility is all still there, but it's not as survivable as it was. So Captain Firequill. Firequill has struggled quite a bit, at least in the Denver area's Brineblood players, and we've got quite a few of them, in that it seemed like he was a little lost in a faction. The Abyssal King helped out a lot, but I do think the changes that we're going to see here are going to help out as well. So we do see him pick up the Fortune Hunter rule, the Headshot rule, and Reposition 3, which are all just fantastic. So Fortune Hunter gives him an extra dice on attack and damage roll against characters. That is melee or range attacks, so that's super nice. It means now that Firequill has some gnarly assassination threat against other casters. Headshot means that he ignores tough and remove from plays models that are destroyed by his range attacks. Again, just ignoring tough is just super nice. Repo 3 is Repo 3. He swaps one of his signature spells, loses Energizer, where everyone in the battle group just gets to move up to 2 inches, and gets Broadside. Wow. Okay, so this is a big one to unpack. Broadside means every model in his battle group makes a basic ranged attack. This was on a few models in Mark III. Some models in Mark III lost it. They were all Army of Legends, and now we have this on a faction where everybody, potentially all the battle group models, just have a ranged attack, which is super hilarious. Squid guns with crit blind, ship guns, crab nets, chain shots. There's a lot of like crit knockdowns. There's some crit blinds. And then, of course, there's the guns on the Abyssal King. This is horrifying, actually. I am scared to see Broadside get cast. That being said, it is expensive and is commonly seen as a trap. We'll see if Firequill really gets a chance to use it a lot, but I expect we will see it quite frequently when Firequill is on the table. The last change he has is that he loses the brutal damage shot type on his Magelock pistol and gains the black shot type instead. So Black Penny was an ability he had on the weapon, and now it's a shot type. So for the Deepborn Dire Troll, it gets a lot of different changes to its options. The head option for the Bellower, it only increases the wrap by 1 now instead of increasing it by 2. And the ranged weapon on it goes from a range 6 spray to a range 8 spray. And it does increase the POW from a POW 10 to a POW 12. One of its fin options, the Lurker, now also grants the Prowl rule, which is a big deal because it's super easy to get concealment on models with Amphibious in an army that just gets to place some water templates or start making things treat it as water. The left arm, the Shark Skull Gauntlet, goes from a cost 3 to a cost 4. The melee weapon on it does increase the POW from a 14 to 15, but now the cheapest Deepborn Troll is 12 points instead of 11. Another left arm option that sees a change, though, is the Squid Blaster. The ranged weapon on it goes from a range spray 10 to a range spray 12. It does decrease in POW, though, from a POW 14 to a POW 12. This is important to note that Rage, the Animus, does impact all damage rolls, not just melee damage rolls. So it meant instead of shooting at POW 17, POW 15, which is still very respectable for a gun, is an option on this guy, especially since he's now a spray 12. The last change to the Deepborn is that the left arm, the Crabnet option, now grants steady. This is something we saw in Winter Core as well. Effectively, what we're doing here is we're taking an arm option that knocks down or stationaries or does something to someone else and makes the user immune to that same effect, which is good because those weapons are also AoE. The Crabnet has Quake. It is an AoE weapon, so that's why having steady granted as part of it is a big deal. First Mate Harger Stormjaw, or just Stormjaw. Realistically, not a whole big change here. His ranged weapon changes from a range 6 AoE 3 POW 12 6 instead to a range spray 6 with no AoE and just straight POW 12. So the range effectively doesn't change, but it's no longer just like a little fireball burp. It's now a fire spray, which is super cool. The Goo, or the Great Old One. Not a lot of change here, just a pretty drastic point decrease actually to going from cost 18 to cost 16, which is pretty nice. So the Marauder Crew Quartermaster, the attachment for the Marauder Crew's mini feat, now says that the powder stores does not impact the Quartermaster. So no more +2 to attack and damage rolls on this one model, which is good because already having a snipe mini feat as well on a both barrel shotgun seemed a little silly. It didn't need extra to hit and extra to damage. Magwabaza, everyone's favorite turtle shaman, goes from speed 4 to speed 5. That turtle's sped up. Apparently, I don't know what's going on there, but that's hilarious. I always chuckled at the speed 4 charges, but now speed 5 is pretty solid. I think it's just a quality of life change to keep that model up with the rest of the army without having to run every other turn. So the Pig Battle Brig gets a few different changes. A lot of what you're seeing here has to do with the changes to Propelled. It does decrease in cost from cost 11 to cost 10, which is nice. It now has a speed at speed 7. It is reposition 5, so it still has 12 inches of movement. It just isn't Propelled 12 where I can move 10 repo 2. I will always beat speed 7. The big change for the Battle Brig, though, is it does replace the Sky Hook ability that it had with Sky Ladder. So Sky Hook let it place a small or medium base friendly non-leader warrior model 2 inches if it essentially passed it during its move, whereas Sky Ladder specifically only allows for the movement of a small medium base friendly solo. That means you're not extending the threat of Marauder Crew or Pig units by 2 inches. Horgar or some other solos can be moved. It is important to note, and this is one of the few times I get to say this, Sky Ladder does not specify friendly faction. It's just friendly. Those still work on the mercenary models. This is a rule that the Sky Raider has. So it was a mercenary model, so it needed to be able to move other stuff inside of an army too. But this means that you could use a Battle Brig to place some mercenary models. So the Pig Dirge, again, there's 3 lines of text, most of which is just the propelled stuff. It is speed 7, reposition 3 instead of reposition 5. But again, it still has propelled. It's just no longer propelled value, and it now has a speed and a reposition. The Pig Shocker, their electrified harpoon range weapon, instead of critical disruption, has just disruption now. It pretty drastically changes their usefulness With an unboostable shot, it's pretty difficult to hit crits. You don't hit them that often. The odds are pretty low. Now they just do it. There's no math into that. They will throw electric eel sticks at warjacks, and those warjacks will have a bad time. Reef Troll, just like their heavy War Beast counterpart, the Reef Troll lights get a lot of changes here. So we see that the Skipper Head replaces the unyielding with sidestep, which is nice. Now we could potentially do some movement shenanigans with it. So the booze option Grogcast does change from point cost 1 to point cost 2, and it does change the Animus from elusive, where it would give dodge, to indomitable, where it gives unyielding, which is good because you just lost unyielding on a head. It does change the most expensive Reef Troll to 12 points as well. One of the right arm options, the ship's gun, changes from a POW 13/7 to a POW 13/8, so the blast damage is a little bit more powerful. The left arm chain shot range attack gains the chain weapon quality. We have not seen this a lot. It's just interesting that it now gets to ignore shields and shield walls, making it a little bit more potent against some of the higher armor stuff in the game. Not a bad change. The Cutlass increases its POW from 13 to 14. It does lose the Brutal Charge rule, and it does gain Duelist. Now, that's a really interesting change. Trolls are pretty notorious for being Def 12. For all of you that have played Trolls at any point, Marks 1, 2, or 3, Trolls were always Def 12 all the time, just pretty much forever. Duelist on a light War Beast means he's Def 14 in melee, which is going to be super nice. So we'll potentially see a lot more Cutlasses out there. And lastly, the final left arm change here is the Boarding Axe option. It loses the critical amputation ability, but gains Cleave. Cleave paired with Sidestep on a head option now means that you could have a light troll get pretty deep into a unit on just its initial attacks alone. And potentially, if it's hitting with all of its attacks and doing enough damage, picks up a 5-man unit on its own, which is phenomenal. And it gets to do it with a bunch of fun non-linear threats. So we might be seeing some pretty murdery melee Reef Trolls show up here soon. So the Surgeon. The Surgeon decreases in cost from 3 to 2. It loses the Anatomical Precision and Inflict Pain special rules, where Anatomical Precision said no tough, and it was an auto point of damage against living models. And Inflict Pain, which allowed it to add or remove models from War Beasts. That one was an interesting kind of hot fix. You have the Galley Crew, which lets you take Fury off your own War Beast, which is really good. And very rarely was it ever close enough to add Fury to enemy War Beasts. It could, but it's pretty corner case. But it lost those rules, which helps justify why it decreased in points cost. But it gains one new one. It gains an ability called Shark Bait, which is something that nothing else has had yet. Shark Bait is once per turn when a friendly faction model makes a tough roll on a 1, 2, or 3, or 4. So effectively, it fails a tough roll while within 5 inches of this model. That model can immediately make up to a 3-inch advance and make 1 melee attack. So what this does is when you kill a model, it fails its tough roll. That model gets to have a say, as long as it's close enough to the Surgeon. And the Surgeons still have Grim Returns, which still means we're bringing dudes back. It's pretty fantastic if you ask me. War Chief Bagadabum. Yeah, it's just so much fun to say. They finally gave this bad boy resistance fire. He needed it. It was long overdue. If not for just the flavor. It's not going to impact a lot of games. Occasionally you're going to get some stuff where, oh no, he gets 1 less damage die against fire on rolls against him. Not that big a deal. And so those are all the changes for the Brineblood Marauders. They have some really interesting stuff going on. This one is also a little tough for me to talk about. I've dealt with a lot of Brineblood's players in our metas. I've talked with some of them quite a bit about like these changes. The Denver area meta, so the meta I'm used to, is very much, I brought 4 units of Marauders, I brought 4 Deepborn Dire Trolls, and that's the list. Everything else is to flavor. So what I'm hoping I see with a lot of these changes is more Reef Trolls. Reef Trolls now have, I think, a lot more definitive role in how the changes to their options work. I think we'll see maybe some ships, guns, Reef Trolls, but I'm really expecting we're going to see some just like cheaper sidestep double melee weapon reef trolls, boarding axe cutlass. I don't want a Def 14 light running through my lines just going haywire with cleave and sidestep. That sounds pretty bad. So there's that, which is super cool. They may also be, I mean, the Animus, I don't know how much it matters at that point. They could be also unyielding, which sounds awesome. Those are realistically the biggest changes. I do think we're going to see more pig shockers on the table because now just straight disruption on their weapons, despite the prevalence of Empower, which does remove disruption, it still means I have to allocate those resources. It still means that a Warjack that is disrupted is best case scenario down 1 focus, worst case scenario down all of its focus. So we'll see some of those. I think the Battle Brig and the Dirge are going to stay endless. The changes to Propel don't really do anything. The change from Skyhook to Skyladder may impact just like threat ranges for folks who are playing a lot of Marauder crews. I don't think it's going to be, again, a deal breaker for folks that are taking it. So that being said, that concludes video number 8 in our series. We have one more, the Mercenaries, for those of you that are watching the whole series. So thank you if you've stuck with us so far through this video or through all of them. We really appreciate that. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and share. Let folks know we're trying to spread the good word of War Machine. It's a great time. And we're also trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube this year. At that point, YouTube is going to pay us for the content that we're making, which is super awesome. That lets us bring just more stuff to the table for everybody. So please let everyone know. If you've stuck around this far, please stick around for one more video on Mercenaries. If we've not covered your favorite stuff yet, hopefully we'll in this next video. But if not, we will see you when we stream next as well. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and we will see you next time.